Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Hello. Trying to get my cameras right and my lighting. I think that's better. Good morning, everyone. You can share to Twitter and Facebook now. I didn't know that you couldn't. I hope you can. I hope you have not been blocked from doing that. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Daring Dialogues, and I'm your host, Shantae Charles. And it looks like the camera or the view is clearer here today on Periscope, so that is good. Still in my husband's office. Oh wow, it was disabled since I came back from break. That's not good. Who trying to fight the power? Nope, I didn't disable it. Very clear, excellent. I'm still in my husband's office because right now it's the farthest away from all of the construction noise going on outside. So hopefully I will not be drowned out today by hammering. So we are here today to empower you, educate you, uplift you, and most importantly, we are here to oppose the darkness that seeks to cover our landscape, that seeks to leave people in ignorance. Yeah. All right. So if you're with us for the first time, this is Daring Dialogues. I'm your host, Shantae Charles. On Tuesdays, it is hashtag Black Table Talk. So if you are sharing this broadcast out, make sure you're hashtagging Black Table Talk so that anywhere on the internet, if somebody hashtags that, they can actually find the broadcast. So whether they're on Periscope or whether they are on YouTube looking for it, or whether they are on Facebook looking for it, they'll be able to find the broadcast or the broadcast link. So I want to talk about a couple of things. We know that this is our day that we really try to cover things that have to do with all things Black, whether that be Black people, Black politics, Black faith, um, all of that, right? So I want to cover something really quick that I see happening with Black preachers. I was going to save this for Thursday, but I'm seeing this stuff too much. I was going to save it for Theology Thursday, but I figured, hey, since we're talking about Black people today, let's just deal with it. All right? So, Black preachers. Why am I talking about this? Cuz I am a Black preacher. So, I've been preaching since 1996. All right? So, you can go and pull my cred and my references, all right? I've been ordained a couple times, gone to Bible schools, done the whole stuff, all right? So, I feel like I have somewhat of a, how can I say it? I feel like I have some skin in the game when it comes to Black preachers and ministers and what we're doing. But I'm seeing leaders demonize people. I'm seeing leaders demonize people. I'm not talking about you talking about a doctrine or you talking about an ideology and saying that something is wrong with this doctrine or something is wrong with this ideology. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about demonizing people and calling people demons. And here's what happens when you do that, okay? When you demonize people, you forfeit your ability to be a conduit of God or to be used by God to deliver them. I'm going to say that one more time. When you demonize people, you forfeit your ability to be a conduit used of God to deliver them. And why do I say that? I'm glad you asked. I say that because demons are not deliverable. Got it? Demons can't be delivered. So if you're calling people demons, what you're saying is there is no hope for them. There's no possibility for them. There's no way they can be delivered because you have made them into a demon. All right? This is Deliverance Ministry 101. Deliverance Ministry 101. Learn how to disassociate the activity, the behavior, and the spirit from the human being. One more time. When you demonize people, you forfeit your ability to be used by God to deliver them. Now God has to send somebody else because you have disqualified yourself from being able to deliver them. If you're going around and you're calling me a demon, there's no way in the world I'm going to bring my soul to somebody who's calling me a demon. Because again, demons are not deliverable. All right? That's point number one. Point number two, this is another thing I see, and it's concerning me. There's a lot of people now who are teaching about freedom, right? And freedom is good. Freedom is something we should all be striving for. There are levels to freedom because freedom has to do with knowledge. Freedom has to do with what you know. Remember, Jesus said, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So that means that freedom is predicated on the truth that you know. And so the more truth that you know, the more freedom begins to take place in your life, right? We get that. But here's what I see happening. Many people are teaching on freedom, but it is really a new set of chains. What do I mean? I'm glad you asked. God is not calling us to teach, to give people a new set of handcuffs. There, I see leaders saying, I've come to free you. And what they're really doing is offering a better set of handcuffs. That's what they're doing. All right. They want to handcuff you to their message, or they want to handcuff you to their sound, or they want to handcuff you to the specific way that they do things, and they're calling that freedom. We're only supposed to be, get this, if you read scripture, we're really only supposed to be handcuffed to Christ and his kingdom. Paul said, I am a bond servant. I am held in chains by Christ. The message I feel compelled to preach is that which Christ has delivered unto me. So if you're delivering a new set of handcuffs to people and you're a preacher, I'm going to admonish you today to stop. Teach the truth. The truth will free people. Point people to the direction of Christ, and they will stay free. And get this, they will stay free permanently. And they won't continue to come back to you for their freedom. But then I guess that would kind of put some people out of business because, yeah. So just make sure that you're not getting a new set of handcuffs under the guise of freedom. All right. The other thing that concerned me was someone tagged me in a Facebook Live of a African-American man. I won't mention his name because I just want to talk about the principle of what he was doing. And this African-American man was going on and on and on about his dream life and about a dream he was given. And he was talking about how in this dream, I guess they sent it to me because they thought it was like prophetic and that kind of thing. But as I began to listen, he kept talking about how he was dreaming and how he was being given so-and-so's mantle. Like he was naming all of these well-known faith preachers, prominent teachers that everybody knows. So I don't know if he was trying to use his dream life to attach himself to these people or what. I don't know. All right. But what concerned me was as he kept naming these people, he kept saying that he was receiving their mantles in his dream. And the thing that concerned me the most was that the majority of the people that he was naming are actually racist and white supremacists. So I really want to ask the question, what did he really see? And what was God really trying to show him? So again, listen, I'm going to say it one more time for people who may not have heard me ever say this again, but I'm going to say it for maybe people who have not heard this. Exactly, Pastor Ben. There is, the New Testament tells us there is one mantle we are supposed to be putting on, and I hardly hear anybody teach on it. I may just have to do a whole sermon series on this, but we are supposed to put on the mantle of Christ. The scripture tells us several times in the New Testament, put on Christ, and therefore you will not fulfill the lusts of the flesh. That is the only mantle we are supposed to be putting on. And I don't care how many people come along and tell you they have a mantle for you. If it's not the mantle of Christ, you better run. That's all I got to say. I don't know how else to put it, because the New Testament is very clear. We're talking about living scriptural lives and living life according to the text. It tells us that we are to have the mantle of Christ. Christ in you, the hope of glory. And then he also puts his mantle on us. So if somebody is teaching something other than that, I'm going to personally tell you, run. All right. We're not supposed to be putting on mantles from the Old Testament. Remember, Christ said, I came to fulfill the law and the prophets. So if he came to fulfill the law and the prophets, then that means whatever was coming through the prophets, once you have the mantle of Christ, you're receiving those things. So I don't have to get, Heinz 57 varieties of mantles in order to feel like I'm powerful. I simply have to be in Christ, receive the spirit that Christ left for us, and receive Christ's mantle and walk in that. Many times we are making the gospel message impractical. We're adding stuff to it that God didn't add to it. We're spiritualizing and spookifying what doesn't need to be spookified. All right. Now I've already gone through 13 of my minutes here. I got 30 minutes today because I am going to end early. I have to be at another appointment. So let me get right into Stamped from the Beginning. I want to finish up this chapter, and then we're going to go to Spare the Kids, Why Whooping Children Won't Save Black America. Again, if you want, literally, as this book says, a definitive history of racist ideas in America that started before America, get this book and start reading. And you'll start connecting the dots, and you'll start seeing how many present day things are happening now. Unfortunately, Prophet, I have to go where they are today. So we're ending this talk about this particular thing about how Blackness became criminalized. How Blackness became criminalized during the Salem witch trials. All right. And remember, we talked about a group of Black people who considered themselves being protected from what was happening to Black people at the time. They were called the Religious Society of Negroes out of Boston. And they actually took this sort of covenant pledge, right? That they would be protected from some of the things that were happening to Black people in exchange for turning Black people in who were trying to run away, who were trying to escape. All right. And so Cotton Mather, who was kind of like the overseer of this religious society of Negroes, because remember, they were not permitted to really think for themselves. They still had to have a white overseer. Yeah. It was a form of the Religious Society of Negroes out of Boston was a form of meritorious manumission. Matter of fact, I have a meme that talks about that I'm going to put up today so people can understand the definition of meritorious manumission. All right. So remember, he told them, you know, don't be made blacker than you already are, because at this point they had begun to associate blackness with the devil. Okay. So he offered enslaved Africans two options. He offered them righteousness that was assimilated whiteness, meaning your rightness came from how close you were associated to whiteness. So under this organization, under this banner, I can protect you with sort of your proximity to me as a white person. And I'm the one who's overseeing your society. I'm the one that's overseeing your knowledge. So you will be protected in that way. So he said, you can take this, or you can go with everybody else and participate in what they called segregated criminal blackness and slavery to the devil and the devil's minions. So basically, it really wasn't an option, okay? It was basically, you follow what we telling you about God and let us rule over you, or we're going to lump you in and say you are the devil's children. We're going to demonize you. And eventually people are going to begin to attack you because of the doctrine that we have preached about devils. And now that we're associating Black people with devils, now I can justify harming you because you were a devil anyway. And we still see that in our society today. We still see that when a Black person is harmed in our society, people immediately go and try to figure out, how can I demonize this person? What can I pull out from their past? Did they have a criminal record? Did they have traffic tickets? Did they smoke a joint? Whatever it is, they look for a way to make the person into a devil, because then it justifies dehumanizing and destroying their life. We're seeing the same thing today. Mather's writings on slavery spread throughout the colonies, influencing enslavers from Boston to Virginia. By the 18th century, he had published more books than any other American. I want you to think about that. A man this racist was the leading author of the day in America. So that means he was leading the educational thought of America at the time. His native Boston had become colonial America's booming intellectual center. Boston was now on the periphery of a booming slave society centered in the Tidewater region of Maryland, Virginia, and northeastern Carolina. The Mid-Atlantic's moderate climate, fertile land, and waterways for transportation were ideal for the raising of tobacco, and lots of it. Fulfilling the voracious European demand, tobacco exports from this region skyrocketed from 20,000 pounds in 1619 to about 38 million pounds in 1700. The imports of captives and racist ideas began to soar with these tobacco exports. In the 1680s, enslaved Africans eclipsed white servants as the principal labor force. In 1698, the Crown ended the Royal African Company's monopoly and began to open the slave trade. Purchasing enslaved Africans became the investment craze. So when people look up and have the nerve to fix their lips to tell Black people that they are not owed anything, I'm going to need you to go and read a book. Okay? All right. The economic craze, not the symbolic craze, not the social status craze. The economic craze did not yield a religious craze, though. Planters still shy away from converting enslaved Africans, ignoring Mather's arguments. One lady inquired, "Is it possible that any of my slaves should go to heaven, and must I see them there? I mean, must I see slaves in the same place that I'm going? Oh, honey. Oh, honey." Trust and believe you will not be seeing slaves in the same place that you are going. Christian knowledge, one planter complained, would be a means to make the slave more apt to wickedness. Cotton Mather's counterpart in Virginia, Scottish minister James Blair, tried to induce planters to realize the submission wrought by Christianity. The 1689 appointment of the 33-year-old Blair as commissary of Virginia, the highest ranking religious leader in Virginia, reflected King William and Queen Mary's new interest in the empire's most populous colony. Blair used profits from slave labor. I'm sorry, what? Blair used profits from slave labor to found, in some ways, people I have heard say, I am not a personal witness of what I'm about to say, but people who have attended this college have said this, all right? So he used profits from slave labor to found what some say is one of the most racist colleges in Virginia, the College of William and Mary, in 1693, the colony's second college. So wait a minute. Slave labor built and founded the College of William and Mary. But you don't think that Black people should have free education as a form of reparations in this country? Interesting. In 1699, Blair presented to the Virginia House of Burgess a proposition for encouraging the Christian education of Indians, Negroes, and mulatto children. Lawmakers responded rather inaccurately that the Negroes born in this country are generally baptized and brought up in the Christian religion, which was not true. As for imported Africans, lawmakers announced the gross bestiality and rudeness of their manners, the variety and strangeness of their languages, and the weakness and shallowness of their minds render it in a manner impossible to make any progress in their conversion. For the much more difficult commercial task, planters overcame these strange languages and had no problem teaching these shallow-minded, rude beasts other matters. So we can educate them in how to keep them running our plantations, but we can't educate them in just reading, writing, sciences, mathematics, etc. Got it. Planters of impossibility suddenly became planters of possibilities when instructing imported Africans on the complexities of pro-slavery theory. Racist ideas, you could teach them that. You could teach them your pro-slavery theory. You could teach them racist ideas. You can teach them tobacco production. You can give them some skilled trades to learn. and you can let them do domestic work, and you can let them manage the plantation, but a college education? No, they're too primitive for that. As Maryland's commissary, the Oxford-educated Thomas Bray did not fare much better than Blair in converting blacks during his tour of Maryland in 1700. Returning to London distressed in 1701, he organized the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel in Foreign Parts. King William approved, and an all-star cast of ministers signed up to become founding members of the Church of England's first systematic effort to spread its views in the colonies. Cotton Mather did not sign up for SPG, distrustful of Anglicans on every level. Well, of course he wouldn't sign up for evangelizing the enslaved. All right? Even though Mather started mocking the Society for the Molestation of the Gospel in Foreign Parts, is what he called it, he remained in solidarity with Anglican SPG missionaries and Quaker missionaries in trying to persuade resistant enslavers to begin to Christianize the resistant Africans. And if you go to the Museum of the Bible, you will see the particular Bible that they were using was not the full gospel. When they said that they were trying to evangelize, no. They took out entire chunks of the scriptures. You know, the parts about getting free from slavery, they took all of that out. So when someone asked the question, how could the black people that they were converting, how could they have sat under this form of Christianity? The truth of the matter is they weren't hearing the whole text. They weren't teaching the whole text. They were taking out all the sections of the Bible that actually related to people breaking free from slavery, because they understood if we give them the whole text, then they're going to realize that they are being deceived. All right. Persuading planters was extremely difficult to go this route. Then again, persuading them to Christianize their captives was much easier than what Mather's friend tried to persuade them to do in 1700. Well, of course it was. If you tweak what you're doing, if you decide what parts of the text that you're going to share, then it makes it easy to create a slave gospel and teach that. Because what they were running into was they were running into resistant Africans who had the possibility of leading rebellions. And they said, we have to do something about this. If we do not start Christianizing them, if we do not start giving them our version of the gospel, they're going to catch on, and there's going to be more and more slave revolts. Plain and simple. So we've got to start feeding them pieces of the scriptures or pieces of the gospel that makes them amenable to being submissive to what is happening to them. We have to teach this in such a way that it makes them believe that they have been created to be our beasts of burden. That's the gospel they were giving them. All right. So when you compare the full text versus what the slaves were getting, you can clearly see that the scriptures was being used to brainwash and to indoctrinate people to accept enslavement. Nat Turner and a few others weren't having it, basically. All right. So let's talk about Spare the Kids, why whooping children won't save Black America. We're going to try to finish up as much as we can of this chapter, and then I'm going to let you go. Hello, Running for Zion. How are you this morning? So, a love whooping. We talked about, and where we're going to pick up today is talking about how whooping Black children has been driven by a very real fear about Black people's safety and well-being in America. All right. So there is a very real fear, right? We're not denying that people are afraid that something bad could happen to their child in this country. Whether you're man, woman, or child, we have seen it. We're watching case after case where people are getting off on killing unarmed Black people, even when the evidence shows that the officers were in the wrong. Because of how the laws are written, officers are granted a certain kind of protection under the law because they have a uniform and a badge. I have talked to some officers about this, and they were telling me that unless the way the law is written changes, you will continue to see police officers get off because of them um, having some sort of leeway in terms of how they murder or how they kill under the law in uniform and badge. All right. I don't remember the term he used for it, but that's what he was sharing in terms of how the law is written. Why are these police officers still getting off, right? Why did officer, what is her name? Betty, can't remember the last name, that shot the gentleman out of Oklahoma. Why did she get off? Why did she even get off recently from even civil rights charges being brought against her? Why did the police officers not get charges pressed against them in the case of Stephon Clark out of California? Why is this still happening? It's because of the way that the laws are written. That's why. And there are people in power that are choosing to uphold the color of the law as opposed to doing the right thing and recognizing, yes, a murder has been committed. All right. So last night I saw something very disturbing on another case where an African American woman was sexually assaulted on the side of the road, and they brought the case, I believe, before a jury, and the jury decided not to charge the two officers. Well, her attorneys said, since they're not going to be charged, we're going to go ahead and release the video to the public so they can see what was done and generate some anger and outrage around it, because these officers, again, are not going to be charged. So is there a reality that Black people under the color of law are being attacked, are being killed, are being assaulted, and people are pretty much getting away with it? Yes. This is a real fear. But what the author is making plain to us is the data shows us that beating your child does not protect them from your real fear. Abusing your child does not protect them from your real fear. As a matter of fact, the data shows that you're actually setting them up to be more susceptible to what it is that you fear could happen to them. So let's talk about it. A Pew Research Center survey published in December 2015 found that Black parents worried more than white parents that their children might get shot at some point, either on the streets of an unsafe neighborhood or by the police. The concern is justified. The most troubling example of this happened in 2014 when a Cleveland police officer mistook 12-year-old Tamir Rice for a 20-year-old man. Now, how you mistake a 12-year-old child for a 20-year-old man in 2 seconds, because if you watch the video, you saw the police hop out of the car and 2 seconds later, the child was on the ground. How do you do that in 2 seconds? I don't know. But they instantly shot him dead. And when he and his partner saw Tamir playing in a park with a toy gun, no wonder the talk is given, and it's as much a part of child rearing as the birds and the bees conversation. Raise your hand if you've ever had the talk given to you. You can put a hand icon or you can pump some hearts. If you've ever had the talk given to you about how to behave in society around police. If you've ever had a talk given to you by your family members or by your parents, raise your hand. Nobody? Nobody looking today? Because if you haven't, that is an anomaly. Not me. You've never had your parents talk to you about how to behave around police. Okay, that's good. My family gave us the talk. We got the talk as women. I got to talk as a woman from my grandmother who was actually raped by a police officer. And I have an uncle as a result of that. My mother gave us the talk in general, but she focused more on my brother telling him about police officers. So yes, I have a uncle who is a result of a police officer raping my grandmother. Yeah. I also have another uncle who is a result of a white minister raping that same grandmother. So, yeah, 2 uncles. Living proof of both Church 2 and the other one. No, but I'm in a melting pot. I was raised as is. Racism no longer happens. Okay. All right. Didn't really get any talks. I give them to my daughter, though. Okay, good. So, some of the things that parents tend to instill as reminders of how to act around white people or how to stay alive if approached by a cop are some of these things here. Do not ever run. They will shoot you. Say yes, sir, and no, sir. Do not mouth off. When asked to retrieve anything, move your hand slowly and narrate your movements. If told to get out of the car, again, move slowly. They were so wrong. My life experience has taught me better. 100. You and your vehicle may be searched with no explanation. Do not protest. You can know your rights. You can say, I know my rights. But I would advise get the officer's name, file a report down at the police station. If police backup arrives, definitely do not protest. I will never forget, I was in a friend's car. He was driving. This was college. This is exactly what I'm going to tell my son. We were in college and we were driving and we were praising the Lord in the car. And he had to go to his house. I forget. I think it was like after Bible study. So it was a little late and it was a whole bunch of us in the car and he had to go to his house and drop something off before he was getting ready to take all of us home because we were kind of carpooling. Next thing you know, he pulls up to his house and we see lights behind us. Woo, woo, woo. And I'm like, okay, what just happened? Right? So he was already opening his car door to like get out because he didn't realize a police officer was following him until the lights started flashing, but we were already parked in front of his home. He gets out of the car and they're like, stop, put your hands up. And then next thing you know, we see 4 more police cars coming behind that one. Yeah. That was the first time that I had been not, outside of my family environment being pulled over. But we weren't really pulled over. It was like they followed us to his house. So they took him and they pushed him up against the car and they started searching him. And they were like, what are you doing here? And he was like, I live here. and they thought that he was a drug dealer. They thought like he was a drug dealer and coming to somebody's place because apparently somebody in his complex was selling drugs. And so they thought he was the dealer coming to make a deal. We're sitting in the car. We're like, oh, snap. And one of the police officers came around because I was in the front passenger seat and one of the police officers came around and he was like, don't say nothing. Don't make any sudden moves. And I was like, dude, we just came from Bible study. What is this? Like I was floored, really. And so we sat there, they searched him. Yeah. They searched him, and he got back in his car. He just kind of sat there for a moment like, I can't believe this just happened to me. And we were like, we can't believe it either, but can you put your stuff in the house and take us where we need to go? So needless to say, I look back at that and I think, man, that could have turned out all kinds of different ways had he not cooperated. And Prophet Jonathan, this happened in Tallahassee. That could have turned out a whole bunch of different ways had he not just cooperated. Because they hopped out like it was some kind of drug bust, threw him up against the car, started searching him and everything, and he got his license out, obviously proved that he lived there. They didn't search the car because we all just kind of sat quietly. That's what they asked us to do. So they didn't wind up searching the car. But I was like, that freaked me out. That freaked me out. So again, these are lived experiences that people have that maybe they don't talk to people about all the time, because when it does happen, you kind of want to forget that it happened. You just want to move on. But like she says here, you and your vehicle may be searched with no explanation. If police backup arrives, definitely do not protest. I'm just thinking about all the people recently whose entire car has been shot up and they killed innocent people inside because they're just trigger happy. So if police backup arrives, definitely do not protest. Be prepared to turn your pockets inside out and lie on the ground. Now, I've never been given that instruction. You may be handcuffed. Accept the injustice that arises because you can file a complaint later. The goal of these lessons is to keep our young people alive. Black parents would rather pick their child up from the police station than be identifying them by a tag in the morgue. Let me sip on that. The debates about physical discipline that we witnessed during the Peterson controversy are not new. But the spate of killings of young unarmed Black people, John Crawford, Rekia Boyd, Mike Brown Jr., Jordan Davis, Chantel Davis, Freddie Gray, Darnisha Harris, Kendra James, Trayvon Martin, Renisha McBride, Von Derek Myers Jr., Tamir Rice, Cameron Tillman, Laquan McDonald, Sandra Bland. I can't remember the other sister here in the Baltimore area. And others who will be killed has elevated Black people's questions about how to protect our children to a new level. And now, when you have white people weaponizing the police and calling the police in the hopes that they will get a trigger-happy police to just shoot and kill us, now that has taken it to a whole new level. So now we're calling the police on friends of mine this last summer. They got the police called on them as they were walking their children in the park in a stroller. This is happening to my friends. I just found out last night that my oldest brother, was waiting on his fiance to pick him up, and somebody in the neighborhood called the police because a Black man was in the neighborhood. So the police came and he had to explain, I'm waiting on my fiance to pick me up so I can go to work. And the police apologized and said, I'm so sorry this has happened to you, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's wonderful. I'm glad that he got a nice, kind police officer that time. But the next time, that may not be the case. All right. So you got people calling people for just living. You're calling people because somebody is black at your pool and has socks on. This is actually a real story. You're calling people because they're barbecuing with charcoal. Really? You needed to involve the police in that? Really? Okay. You're calling the police because children are selling lemonade or selling water. So these instances of white people losing their minds has had parents having to take their protection of their children to a new level. Yes, in the recent one, calling the cops because someone's dog is humping your dog. Yes, Prophet Jonathan. So my question is, what kind of dispatchers do they have? Why are the dispatchers taking these calls and actually dispatching police to these so-called crimes? Because cities need to begin to enact fines for people who are using cops and using officers as racism valets. You need to be fined. If you're wasting the resources of your state, you are wasting taxpayer dollars when they could actually be out solving a real crime. You need to be fined every time it goes down. The connective tissue between the Peterson case, whoopings, the talk, and the epidemic of police shootings was on full display in Baltimore in April 2015. Toya Graham, the infamous Baltimore mom, snatched her son out of a riot that erupted after the death of 25-year-old Freddie Gray, who suffered a severe spinal cord injury while in police custody. Hours after Gray was laid to rest, Graham, a single mother of 6, arrived at Mondawmin Mall and saw her 16-year-old son, Michael Singleton, dressed in black clothes and a mask, and he was poised to throw rocks at police officers in angry protest. After a rumor spread on social media of a purge, dozens of police in full riot gear and a heavily armored Bearcat tactical vehicle greeted these students as they left Frederick Douglass High School and headed toward the mall. Officers prevented the students from boarding school buses and the local subway. So if I can't get on my school bus and I can't get on the subway to go home, then they had no way to get home. Just think about that, okay? According to eyewitnesses, the police escalated the situation by marching aggressively toward groups of stranded, angry students. Been there, done that. Students threw bricks and water bottles at police. Police officers maced the students and hurled rocks and bricks back at the children. Now, who's the adults and who are the children? You stopped them from being able to get on a bus and go home. You stopped them from being able to get on a subway to go home and disperse. So now you have created a situation that you can now turn around and say, well, they started it first. Who is the adult here and who are the children? A Baltimore teacher told Gawker those children were set up. They were treated like criminals before the first brick was thrown. These children are just angry. These are the same kids the cops pull up on the corner for no reason. Sandra Alman Cooper, president of the Mondawmin Neighborhood Improvement Association, told the Baltimore Sun. By the time Graham appeared on the scene, cameras were rolling, but she didn't care. Her goal was to get her son out of the chaos and back home safely. When she made eye contact with him, she went ballistic. And you can watch the footage, it's online. Get the bleep over here, Graham screamed as she repeatedly hit her son upside the head. Once unmasked, young Michael backed away from his mother, subdued with a look of humiliation in his eyes. The 50-second video of the incident has been viewed millions of times. The mother and son suddenly became media darlings, appearing on CNN, The View, and The Today Show. As Graham paraded her son on the media circuit, it was akin to giving a child a whooping and making him come out to say hello to company. And America ate it all up. Oprah Winfrey gave Grams the thumbs up seal of approval to drive home the narrative that good mothering requires physical force. The New York Post encouraged more Black mothers to beat the protest out of their children with the headline, "Forget the National Guard, send in the moms." MSNBC's Joe Scarborough, who called Ferguson teen Mike Brown Jr. a thug and blamed him for his own death, jubilantly called Graham a good, strong mother. The Reverend Al Sharpton co-signed by saying Graham should be praised for her actions. Former NAACP President Kwesi Mfume called her slapfest necessary violence. During an interview on CNN, he dismissed critics who noted the contradiction of a mother using violence to show her son that violence is wrong. Just logic, people. Logic. Logic. I'm telling you violence is wrong while I'm slapping you upside your head. I'm telling you violence is wrong while I'm slapping you upside your head. So what is your body? What is the message your body is getting, though I'm saying violence is wrong? Yes, she hit him. She was trying to make him understand that she loves him, Mfume said. So when he gets a girlfriend and he's trying to make her understand that he loves her and he's slapping her upside the head, then we're going to want to call the domestic violence hotline and we're going to have him arrested, aren't we? We are. But his mother, who taught him that she loves him because she was slapping him upside the head, she's a good mother. We got to fix our logic. We got to fix our logic. I have to stop. But I just want you to think, people. I want us to think. That's why we're reading this book. We have to fix our logic. White America is going to keep on telling you to beat your children. For those of you all who want a little bit of homework, I want you to go and I want you to research the Whipping Post. The Whipping Post. America used to have whipping posts that were, it started in slavery, but it carried into the prison system. They had whipping posts. Baltimore had one. I think Philadelphia had one. A couple of other places. I want you to go and research the origin of the whipping post and slavery. Exactly, Prophet. We're telling children that I love you, therefore I hit you. So, yeah. Did your children go to public school? I don't have children. But I taught in public school for 15 years. And the main thing I got from children there, Miss Charles, I didn't think you were serious because you weren't yelling at me. I didn't think you were serious because you weren't yelling instructions at me. When my mama is serious about something, when she wants me to do something, she yells. So you didn't yell. So I didn't think you were serious. So I didn't do it. You weren't angry. You weren't belligerent. My boyfriend hits me because he really loves me. I'm telling you what I heard, not what I imagined. I'm telling you what came out of the mouth of my students. I'm with him because he loved me. He's just showing me that he really cares about me. Sweetie, you have a black eye that you're covering up with makeup and you telling me he loves you. We have to examine our logic. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. I hope that I've said something today to encourage you, empower you, inform you, uplift you, and give you some ammunition to oppose the darkness that wants to cover our landscape today. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness, so please go out today, be light. Remember, a human being is a human being is a human being is a human being. So whether it's a mother, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a child, we're all human beings. We are all human beings. All right? Just understand the child you're beating today is going to grow up to be the adult who beats people tomorrow. Same spectrum. All right? Take care. Fix your logic. And God bless.